Well, it's time to hit the rock pile. You know, I've seen some very good players who still didn't practice all that well. In fact, some who practiced poorly. So I want to talk about some of the elements of practicing and getting the most out of that time you're spending. You know, in the practice arena, you're going to be faced with really two elements. You're going to be looking at working on your swing, and you're going to be looking at practicing the shots that you're going to have on the course. Now, there's an important distinction in working on your game between those two types of practice. The first one is working on your swing. When you're working on your swing, you might be aiming to the same target over and over again, or you might not even be aiming at all. You're just trying to get a feel for a certain movement or a certain position. A lot of times when you're working on your swing in this fashion, you might have a video camera out, or maybe even taking a lesson, I suppose, qualifies as well. But this type of time spent on the range, you're really just focusing more on the movement, not so much on where the ball is going. In fact, you may even hit some that are crooked, but you feel like you did the body movement correctly, so you might want to stay with it. So this is an important part of getting to be a better player, is working on your swing. All too often, however, players only use that type of practice, and there's far more to it than that. Having a nice golf swing is a good thing, to be sure, but to really make use of the driving range and to get the most out of our practice, we have to have an idea of where we're going, to choose some of those shots that we're going to be using out on the golf course, hitting to some different targets and the like. Now, when I go to PGA Tour events and watch some of my friends play, I would say that about half the players have laid down a club to give them a reference for where they're going in their practice. When you're doing this, you're solidifying exactly where you're going, so you're not getting used to shooting to a target with an aim that's incorrect. When you're setting this club down parallel, I want you to remember that parallel means that these two lines, the one between the ball and the target and this line, are the same distance apart forever. That means that if you're going to the 150 sign and you want to set a club down, you better be aiming this club about at the number 1 on the sign. They're not very far apart, so parallel means they stay close together all the way out there. So we're not looking to aim this club very far to the left. When you do have this club down, you now have an excellent reference for where you're going. You could imagine if I didn't have this reference and I was practicing, well, I might inadvertently go ahead and aim to the right of my target, make a beautiful swing, and the ball goes to the right of my target. Well, instantly I'm going to say, oh no, bad swing, do it again, and I'm going to alter my motion unnecessarily. So having that pointer club down is really a huge one for making sure that you're in the ballpark with your technique. Some players will aim a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left as a matter of comfort. That doesn't bother me so much, but I want to make sure that you're clear on what direction you're going so you don't get too far off. You know, that can be a real eye-opener in itself about how to set that club down parallel to the target line. But there's one other thing you can do in your practice that will really help, and that is that you're going to put a club down perpendicular to this parallel club that you just made. Now, what that's going to do for us is it's going to show us where our ball position is, because I can aim basically straight toward my target and still have a poor ball position. So if I set this club down, it gives me a really nice reference for where that ball position is. The club down the target line gets me my aim, and the ball position club helps me with the rest of it, sort of closing the deal, if you will. So that ball position club is an important one also. Now, we've talked about these two elements of practice. This one is really working on your swing. The second one is getting ready for the golf course. So when we're doing that, basically we might not have these down, and I do want you to go ahead and pick some different targets out there. Mix it up, have some fun with it. Play some games out there where you go ahead and hit a shot with a 7-iron, grab your 3-iron, try another one, back to the sand wedge, mix it up and have a good time. That's a great way to practice to get ready for the golf course. So there's working on your swing and there's getting ready for the golf course. Make sure you understand the difference in those two. Boy, if we only had unlimited time to practice, Tiger Woods wouldn't have a chance. But the problem is most of us have only maybe an hour or two a week to practice. So how are you going to make use of that time to get the most out of it? The way I want you to think of it is, I want you to break your practice time into two halves. One has to do with the scoring game, which is going to be the chipping, short game shots, rough shots, sand, putting, anything inside of 50 yards. The second part is, of course, the full swing. Now, breaking it in two parts like that is going to help you to make sure you get to the important part first. When you get to the golf course, I want you to go straight to your scoring game before you go to the long game. We've all had it happen where you go to the driving range and you're working on your swing. You're sure you're going to get to that chipping game in a few minutes, but you want to hit just a few more balls and, oh, that didn't go quite right, or it didn't feel quite right, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you haven't gotten to your short game. Now, of course, it doesn't take too many tomorrows like that, and all of a sudden you haven't hit a short game shot off of the golf course in a month and a half. So this really guarantees that you're going to get to the important part. Hitting the ball well is fine, but if you don't have a good short game to back it up, you won't post a good number. So make sure, take that time that you have, break it into pieces. I don't care if it's a half an hour that you only have to practice or an hour per week, you're going to break it into two parts. Take after those scoring shots, then take after the long game.